Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we're reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We're in the 4th canto, right? Which is entitled Creation of the Fourth Order. Oh, by the way, you all speak English. Is it? How many of you do speak English? Oh, everybody. Okay, so we don't need a translator, right? Well, I guess the unlucky few will be without translation. We're in chapter 7. The sacrifice performed by Daksha, and we're on text 15. There's no more light, this is all the light, right? If possible, it's actually better to think when it's brighter. When the brighter the space, the better. Yo saumaya vidita tattva drisha sabhayam. Kshipto durukti vishikar viganayatan mam. Arvak patantam arhatam nindaya yapat. I'll do that one again. Arvak patantam arhatam nindayapat. Tama nindayapat. Too long. Drishta, blind. Drishtyar, draya, Drishtyar draya sabhagavan svakrite natushyet. Thank you. Oh, there was a little decoration there. Drishtyar draya sabhagavan svakrite natushyet. Sada sabhagavan svakrite natushyet. Would anyone like to try? Should I sing it once again? Once again, Mataji says. Okay. All right. Dasosmi. Yo saumaya vidita tattva drisha sabhayam. Kshipto durukti vishikar viganayatan mam. Arvak patantam arhatam nindayapat. Drishtyar drayasa bhagavan Svakrite natushit. Sa Bhagavan Svakrite natushit. How about now? Yo sau maya vidita tattva drisha sabhayam. Nindayapat. Drishtyardraya sa Bhagavan Svakrite natushit. Ladies. Drishtyardraya sa Bhagavan Sakrite natushit. Okay. Yam. Who? Asau. That. Maya. By me. Avidita tattva. Without knowing the actual fact. Drisha, by experience. Sabhayam, in the assembly. Kshipta, was abused. Drukti, unkind words. Vishikaihi, by the arrows of. Vigannaya, taking no notice of. Tat, that. Mam, me. Arvak, downwards. Patantam, gliding down to hell. Arhatama, the most respectable. Nindaya, by defamation. Apat, saved. Drishtya, seeing. Ardraya, out of compassion. Saha, that. Bhagavan, your lordship. Svakritena, by your own mercy. Tushit, be satisfied. Translation. I did not know your full glories. For this reason, I threw arrows of sharp words at you in the open assembly, although you did not take them into account. I was going down to hell because of my disobedience to you, who are the most respectable personality, but you took compassion upon me and saved me by awarding punishment. I request that you be pleased by your own mercy, since I cannot satisfy you by my words. Purport. As usual, a devotee in an adverse condition of life accepts such a condition to be the mercy of the Lord. Factually, the insulting words used by Daksha against Lord Shiva were enough to have him thrown perpetually into a hellish life. But Lord Shiva, being kind toward him, awarded him punishment to neutralize the offense. King Daksha realized this and, feeling obliged for Lord Shiva's magnanimous behavior, wanted to show his gratitude. Sometimes a father punishes his child, and when the child is grown up and comes to his senses, he understands that the father's punishment was not actually punishment but mercy. Similarly, Daksha appreciated that the punishment offered to him by Lord Shiva was a manifestation of Lord Shiva's mercy. That is the symptom of a person making progress on the path of Krishna consciousness. It is said that a devotee in Krishna consciousness never takes any miserable condition of life to be condemnation by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He accepts the miserable condition to be the grace of the Lord. He thinks, quote, I would have been punished or put into a more dangerous condition of life due to my past misdeeds, but the Lord has protected me. Thus I have received only a little punishment as token execution of the law of karma. End quote. Thinking of his grace in that way, a devotee always surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead more and more seriously and is not disturbed by such so-called punishments. Whose is this? How do you turn off the... Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaiva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. So does anyone remember anything we just read? Can anyone recall anything? Yes. Okay, very well. That's pretty good. Anything else? Oh, you're still reading the... Okay, so you're going to translate, right? All right. If you need to, please interrupt me in the case I go too far and you need to catch up or you didn't understand a word I might have used. Yes, Balaram. Okay, very well. Okay, anything else perhaps? Okay, these notes are by your mercy. I typed them up. Yeah. Okay, this is a truly remarkable story in the Bhagavatam. I mean, all stories in the Bhagavatam are quite remarkable, but this one's really, really complex. There's so much going on here, and I took enough notes here to speak for 5 days. And some or other I'll try to condense this into maybe 30 minutes or so. Also very, very relevant to us. Why would this story be so relevant to us? That's a question to the esteemed audience who's hopefully awake. Why would this be so relevant, especially to us? this morning. Not necessarily this morning, just to us. Why would this be so relevant? Yes. Dealing with Vaishnava Parad, okay, that's pretty relevant, and we're surrounded by Vaishnavas. It's kind of a mind field. You know what a mind field is? Yes. Yeah. It's a field of minds. You know what minds are? No, mine. And a mind field is a field of minds. When you step on it, it blows. Mind field, not like the mind. So if you live with Vaishnavas, it's like a minefield. You can commit an offense any second. It's also a minefield for sure. Okay, why else would this be so relevant? Not just today's verse, but this whole section. I mean, I assume you've been attending Bhagavatam classes every day. Yes. Proud, yeah, that's pretty good. That is pretty good. Because we are like Daksha. Minus the expertise. Daksha was an expert at many things. As a matter of fact, Daksha was a great personality. Hard to overestimate the fineness of Daksha. And yet, this superfine person is behaving in such a bizarre way, in such a gross way. So we can really, thank you. So we can really relate to this. And not only that, but he's offended people, he's offended Lord Shiva. I mean, there was a big trouble, a lot of trouble in all this relationship. And the trouble was resolved. And it's interesting how it was resolved. By studying all of this, we could actually learn something about our own situation and try to prevent falling into a similar situation. What's interesting here in the Bhagavatam says that, right, Daksha was killed. He literally died in this skirmish. He died. He was dead. And then Lord Shiva sort of gave a boon to everyone. Okay, you don't have a head, you'll have a... And you know, I would put your head back on your body and you would have it again. But it's been burnt, so no head. We'll take a head of a goat and just mount it on your shoulders and you'll have a head of a goat and you'll be fine, man. The other demigod lost his arm, so okay, we're not going to save your arm. You're going to, for your need of arms, you're going to use arms of another person. You lost legs, you're going to use your legs through the other person. You lost your teeth, you're going to eat through the mouth of another person, and so on. I can't remember all the details, but something like this. So Lord Shiva patched them all up. But interestingly enough, many of them he didn't patch up completely, but actually put them in this position when they're interdependent. Like they're not independent. Obviously they were misusing their independence. Hello, this is a very dangerous thing. It's a great thing we have independence. People crave independence. But when you're given independence, what do? You hang yourself. There is a saying, you give the person enough rope and he will, does anyone know this saying? Yeah, and he will hang himself. That's what spiritually incomplete people do. They misuse their independence, and that's pretty much the situation of everyone in this world. People are very good at misusing their independence, and then they were put into codependent situations. I mean, we're always dependent on others, right? But now, after all of this, they became more dependent on others. And particularly Daksha here was given a new head, and a head of a goat, which is I don't know, if I had to walk around with the head of a goat, I don't know how many people will come to hear a lecture by a fellow with a goat head. Probably GBC wouldn't let me go out on Harinam. Like, then okay. And at this point, interesting enough, at this point Daksha wakes up. And does anyone remember what happens when Daksha wakes up? Like, he's back to life. And he sees Lord Shiva and something happens. Yes, Prabhuji.
His ego is removed and he starts to pray.
Correct. He says, the Bhagavatam says, he's become purified. He's become purified by looking at Lord Shiva. Just finding himself in front of Lord Shiva, he's become purified. Now, this is pretty much the recipe we're trying to follow. Like, here's the deity, here's a great devotee, here are Prabhupada's books. Put yourself in front of these individuals, these things, and put yourself before the holy name, and you'll become purified. But the question is, he was in front of Lord Shiva before. How come he's purified now and he wasn't purified back then? It's the same Lord Shiva. Now we're purified. Pure. However, we see something's missing there. The process is being offended. Do you know what it means for a process to be offended? If you have a process, and if you offend the process, you break the process. So the process doesn't work. Like in the computer language, there is an offending command. If you type an offending command, then things don't work. Your system crashes, or in an intense case. So we're offending the system somehow. Very interesting, right? Same person, Daksha, same person, Lord Shiva. This Daksha now, being in front of Lord Shiva, by looking at this great personality, is purified. But before, he had so many opportunities to be before Lord Shiva. And he was before Lord Shiva. As a matter of fact, Lord Shiva was his father-in-law. No, Lord Shiva was his son-in-law. You know what a son-in-law is? Okay. So they were even in a familial relationship, and yet Daksha was not purified. So obviously, there ought to be certain conditions for us to be purified. And what is the problem? What is the problem here? Why are the conditions not met? Sometimes we do get this kind of a picture that Krishna consciousness is a mechanical process or a chemical process. If you have all of the ingredients, you put them all in a cup, you stir it all up, and boom, kaboom, pure Krishna consciousness comes out. But it doesn't work like that. Because in it all, the most important ingredient is actually a spiritual ingredient. To the point that you could literally be in Vrindavan and be a demon, as there have been demons in Vrindavan. Not going to serve Krishna, but actually going to kill Krishna. So just the fact that all of the factors are in is not enough, because there's ultimately the spiritual component. And what is that spiritual component? That is the soul. Spiritual component's the soul. That is our own volition. Do you know what volition is? How do you say volition in German? Volition is ability to want. Ability to desire. That's called volition. So only conscious beings have a volition. Objects cannot desire, want, and think and feel. Only conscious beings are capable of volition. As a matter of fact, it is a symptom of a living being. Why? Because that is the department of consciousness, and consciousness by its nature is spiritual. And that is the thing that Krishna doesn't touch. That is the thing that we need to have the volition. We need to want to be devotees. Or in this case, with Daksha, something changed in his head, in his mind, in his heart, wherever, I don't know where to point, in his consciousness ultimately. And so now that something has changed in his consciousness, when he came before Lord Shiva, kaboom, he's purified. Now there is the effect. And what's interesting, upon being cleansed here, so Daksha is looking at the same Lord Shiva, but he's in love. Daksha has love for Lord Shiva. I mean, what a change. Like when you read those verses, I mean, he's full of love. Even though by Lord Shiva his head was cut off and then he got a head of a goat. But he's full of love for Lord Shiva. This is another interesting thing. I'll just... Every time I think of this, I think of this one incident where we went to change japa in front of a church. And like most of the churches, no one goes there, so it's really good to change japa because it's quiet. There's no one there. So all of those who think we're going to build temples and people will become Krishna conscious, they're wrong. Catholic churches are all over the place, and people even go in and take pictures of themselves, and then they go to the beach and be foolish. And church fits right in. It's like a very nice thing from my vacation, and we saw the church. We went there to chant japa, and then in front of the entrance to the church there was a big board, and there was a giant poster in the board, and in the poster all different spiritual traditions were listed. God knows how many. And the priest, the local priest, he is the one who made the poster. And he listed all of these different spiritual traditions, and he hated on every single one. Do you know what it means to hate on? Yeah. So he would put a name of a spiritual tradition, and there'd be just a blast of hate coming from this priest, and they're this, and they're that, and they're demons, and everyone's going to hell, and of course. And then, we read it all carefully. We read also about Hinduism. And we were thinking, apparently in the heart of this priest, there is no love, there's just hate. Like, that's the prominent emotion in the heart of this priest. Just a whole lot of hate. It's interesting. Sometimes some devotees are like this too. Like you're wondering what process are they practicing. Like hate is the predominating emotion. And yet we're trying to become bhakti yogis. And so it's interesting with Daksha here, how before this point, when he would look at Lord Shiva, what would he focus on? He would focus on all the things which still exist. But now, with a different consciousness, maybe different head, that was the thing. Now he has a different head, he can think better. Oh man, this is Hare Krishna. This was a joke, I didn't mean to offend Daksha. Maybe I need a different head. Might be smarter if I get a head of a pig. But it's interesting how, you looked at same Lord Shiva, who was the husband of his daughter, who did all of the things he's done. But now he's focusing on different things. And it's interesting, even like in psychology, people who experience depression are people who are incapable of focusing on positive things in life. Like two people look at the same situation, and one is feeling full of hope, and the other one is feeling hopeless. Just because one person chose to focus on one aspect of the situation and the other one on the other. One place better not to say where it was, but we were there not too long ago. And I was asked to help one bhakta who had lots of doubts. And someone told him that he would do better to not focus on the doubts. Because he's focusing too much on the doubts, so therefore he's having difficulties in Krishna consciousness. But I would argue that it's not a problem of being focused on doubts. But you see, like when you have a doubt, when you have a question, what are you focused on? On the insolvability of the question? Or are you looking forward to the positive answers to the problem? Because every question is a problem. You get a question, you're facing a problem. And then if you're a depressing person, you would just think, oh, this is difficult. I'm going to sleep. Or you may think, oh, this is a challenge. I'm looking forward to eventually finding out what's the good answer to this. And that answer will change my life. And like this with any other problem in life. Like here you're living in a community. Living in a community is a beautiful thing, which comes at a hefty price. You know what's a hefty price? A big price, heavy price. It's like, you live close to people, it's nice, but you know how we people tend to be. We can be nasty towards each other. And so then the question is, what do you focus on? Is the cup half full or half empty? What's your focus? Like that. And so Daksha here has a completely different focus now. Everything Shiva did is still there. Nothing's been taken out of the picture. But now he's focusing on great things. Oh, you're a great personality. Dude, you knew that before, that he was a great personality. But now he's happy about it. I guess I'll say it, and you may even know this devotee, and it is super unfortunate that I cannot call him a friend, because he was so nasty for such a long time, not towards me, but towards loads of devotees. This was a very extreme example of a devotee. Like, so disrespectful, it's hard to imagine. Even making websites dedicated to to being disrespectful. And his life mission was to find something in every devotee that he can hate on. And then he became ill. And he was dying. And we weren't sure whether he was going to survive or not. And then the devotees who he hated on for years got together and in the temple had a 24-hour kirtan for his benefit. Can you see the difference? Like in this person, in whom you can hate everything because he was such a hater. And yet devotees didn't focus on that. They were like Krishna and Putana. Putana was just twisted. You know what it means, twisted? Twisted in the head. What's a German word? Yeah, thank you. And yet, what did Krishna see in it all? He saw, oh, she likes me. Because for one split of a second, Putana thought, oh, he's cute. And Krishna was, oh, she likes me. That's a great soul. It's not that Krishna is stupid and he didn't see other things. He saw him. But in his own beautiful consciousness, that one little tiny beautiful thing was the important one. So in the minds of all of these devotees whom this person offended, and not once, but continually for decades, they saw only good in this person and wanted to help him. And on his deathbed, when he was told this, he broke down and cried. And then he died. But I think what devotees did for him must have purified his heart. Okay, what's the time? 8:30. When's this supposed to end? Latest 9. Okay, I definitely like to stay shorter than latest. Okay, if you remember here in the beginning of this verse, Srila Prabhupada translates Sanskritam as follows. Daksha saying, I did not know your full glories. This is Daksha saying to Lord Shiva, I did not know your full glories. For this reason, I threw sharp words. What is Daksha saying here? He's saying that ignorance is excuse. Now the question to the esteemed audience this morning, another difficult question is ignorance an excuse? Is ignorance an excuse? Yes. No. Okay. Why would you say such a thing?
At the moment you take part in something, you have to follow the rules, and if you, out of ignorance, don't know the rules, then you'll be punished. Like, say, you're going on traffic, you have to know the rules.
Correct. You practically said what Prabhupada said many times. Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji also gives the example of fire.
Yeah, yeah.
The child doesn't know.
It'll burn anyways.
Touch.
Yeah. That's a good one too. Anyone else has a different opinion? Is ignorance an excuse? Yes.
It's not as bad as consciously committing.
Very well. Very well. So it is not an excuse, but you get a little bit, it's not as bad as when you do it in full knowledge of the situation. Okay. Anything else? Anyone else would want to answer this question? Okay, then I'll proceed. Well, I agree with all of you. Ignorance is not an excuse. And even when we say that ignorance is excuse, it's only it's not really an excuse. It's just what's the English term for that? When you break the law in ignorance and then you're still found guilty, but the sentence is not as harsh. There's a technical term for it, alleviating circumstances or something like that. I can't remember. Do you have a German term for that? Okay, how do we say that in English? Mild. Oh, okay, literal translation. Yeah. Okay, but good. You see, in most languages, there's a term for this phenomenon. Well, I'll tell you personally what I notice. About ignorance and actually acting within ignorance, and I don't want this to sound just like my own opinion and that's it. But my opinion is also based on my study of Krishna consciousness for all these years. And that is a form of responsibility that we can never get rid of responsibility. If you make a judgment, uninformed judgment, you're a really gross person. What's a gross person? Gross person is someone who has an agenda. And because you have an agenda, you actually do not care to investigate, but you actually quickly make a judgment. See, spiritual seekers, yes? Last three sentences. So the point is, if you're uninformed about a situation, and yet you make a judgment about this situation, it suggests that you have an agenda. And because you have an agenda, you do not care to investigate the situation. Because your agenda tells you that you want the situation to mean certain thing. For example, according to the Bhagavad Gita, the most prominent anartha in every conditioned soul is the desire to lord and to control, to own, possess. That's all same thing. And people love to hate. Because by hating, people put themselves in a position of superiority. Like you're really putting down someone, and so it makes you feel good about yourself. Makes you feel good about yourself. In psychology, they call this cheap virtue. You know what cheap virtue is? How did you translate virtue? Yeah. Virtue, something that it's nice and good. And cheap means you didn't earn it. You got it cheap just by blaspheming someone. And you feel like, I'm above that person. Someone broke regulative principles. Oh, freaking animal. And by doing that, you just feel like, I'm above that. And I'm above that person. Instead of actually feeling friendship, compassion. So that's what it means to have an agenda. And because people typically have twisted agendas, because in this material world, souls are twisted. And therefore, very few souls are actually satyakama, the lovers of truth. And they don't care to find out the truth. Even religion to them it's just a patch, something that makes them feel good about themselves. Hardly ever do you find someone taking to religion in order to really find out what is going on. And so therefore there's a terrible culture of being in ignorance. And we're very quick to pass a judgment, very quick. Even when we know very little about something. I'll give you a few examples, like very heated examples, and don't try to pull me in. Like when the war broke out in Ukraine, then devotees said, "What do you think about that?" I don't know. I know only stupid things that are said on TV. Like, actually, not TV. I can't remember what was the last time I saw a TV, but from what I hear around, what's placed in the. I don't even follow some social media, so I'm poorly informed. And God knows what's going on behind curtains. How can I have an opinion? Bhakti Vidya Purna Swami, what's your opinion? I'm sorry, but I really don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I know very little, so little. I cannot form an opinion. Then there were two, I'm from Croatia by birth, and there were two devotees split up in two groups in the capital. And they wanted me to take sides. At that time, for 20 years, I didn't come to Croatia. I know nothing about it. I'm in the States. That's on the other side of the globe. How can I pass a judgment? I know very, very, very little. But we're so quick to pass a judgment. And especially when our emotional buttons are pressed. He did this, that, and she did that, and witch, burn her at the stake. Witch. Yeah, you know what a witch is. And remember what the church used to do to witches. Burn them. It's like, so quick. Then when we burn the witch, then we feel very good. Is there another one to burn? Let's find one. That's a tendency. So why in the world did Daksha pass a judgment in ignorance? You don't know about Shiva, yet you're passing a judgment. Hello? We do this too much, too often, because we don't have the culture of actually seeking the truth. And such people are very often mild, if not severe, religious fanatics. I guess I'll give the second half of this tomorrow. Okay, I'll say one more thing and then I'll end there, because as far as I can tell, it's 1:45, is it? Actually, I have a clock here too. Yeah, it's 43. So, okay, last thing then for this discussion. In the domain of religious philosophy, people have noticed that religious people have a tendency to say that sin is preceded by ignorance. You follow this? Sin is preceded by ignorance. In other words, first there is ignorance, then there is sin. But where did ignorance come from? Yeah, it came from sin. It came from the original sin. Original sin. The problem is spiritual, with us, with the soul. Because the soul has sinful desire. Sinful desire means to be away from Krishna, away from truth, and so on. And therefore, because of sinful desire, there is ignorance. Because you cannot be sinful and in knowledge at the same time. Can I finish this and then I'll open up for discussion? That's why people who sin, they always explain to themselves and to the world that sinning is actually, they justify their sin. If not even worse, where they say the sin is a good thing. Like the fascists, calling Jews not humans. They don't have a soul. And they're evil. They all need to be... this is what meat eaters do to animals. They don't have a soul. They're not persons. They have no feelings. They're food. Like a childhood friend of mine has a restaurant. And she told me, I can't do that anymore. When I see those eyes, she gets dead bodies and then they chop them up and cook them and serve them, And she says, when I see those eyes, I can't do it. Because she's brought to knowledge. So to facilitate sin, Krishna gives ignorance. And like this, then ignorance feeds sin and sin feeds ignorance. And that's how it goes. And after God knows how many lifetimes, we're so implicated in the cycle of sin and ignorance that we're absolutely in ignorance and in sin. And then when we start on a spiritual path and we want to clear it all, we don't even know how ignorant we are. I mean, I regularly get surprised by, oh my goodness, is that me? Yes, that is you. Like when you see your motivation as to why you do things, be quite a challenge. So therefore, for someone to come out of the material conditioning besides God's mercy, there has to be our love of truth. Satya Kama. Satyam Jate, na Anrita, the Vedic mantra, which by the way became the official slogan of country of India. Satyam Jate. Truth is victory. To be successful means to find truth, or to be truthful, or to seek truth, all of that. Na Anrita, not the lies, or not untruth, like that. And so this is very much reflected in our tendency to pass a judgment without seeking truth. Because we don't care about truth. We just want to hate. Or something else. Or we just want to, like my grandmother. Only once in my lifetime was I in a car crash. And it was a mild car crash. And I was at fault. It was my fault. And I even told her I was at fault. And then later on I heard her on the phone telling other relatives how I was in a car crash and how the other idiot was at fault. She, out of, I don't know what, affection for me or I don't know what, or maybe some false ego, like, we are the best and he's with us, could be that too. So even though I clearly said it was my fault, it was totally my fault. The other guy had nothing to do with it, He was just driving and I made a mistake and there was, no one got hurt, cars were a little bit bruised and that's it. But her phone call was telling all the other relatives, oh, he was in a car accident, but everything's fine. That other idiot was all at fault. Not a truth lover, my late grandmother. God bless her soul. She was very kind to me, sometimes too kind. Okay, so I'll stop here and open up for the floor for questions or comments, if there are any. Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. So there are many sections you spoke upon, and many sections where one could ask questions. Just in the last section when you spoke about how the sin is, as far as I understand it, to get it right, sin is implemented in the soul, and then Krishna gives ignorance that we can follow the sin?
I wouldn't say it's implemented in the soul, but the capacity for it's there.
So it's the capacity is implemented. So yes. I have an app on my phone, but I don't have to choose it if I don't want it.
Yeah.
So meaning Krishna gives this tendency or this ability to sin.
Not a tendency, just that option is there.
The option is there.
Yeah, not the tendency.
Does it mean the tendency of sin, because the soul is in quality like Krishna's soul? So Krishna has the ability to sin also in that it comes from him.
Wow.
No,
no, good question. I'm all up for difficult questions. Just give me a sec. First, in all honesty, I'd say that this is one of the more difficult questions in Krishna consciousness, and it is a question that I cannot say that I myself am completely satisfied with all of the answers I have heard, and throughout Vaishnava history has been, as far as I can tell, a bit of a contentious point even between acharyas. At least judging from what has been said on the matter. Therefore it's a little bit difficult to go into it. But the rough story that we have heard from Srila Prabhupada, which is we have all come from the spiritual world. And that for love there has to be freedom to make the choice to be away from Krishna. Now, for example, I could ask a question, like if God is all-powerful, and if God is the source of everything, why did He in the first place create a reality? Why is there a reality within which there has to be this kind of freedom in order for love to exist? See, like that question I never had answered. The question stops there. Like, for love, you need to have the freedom. And we see that, according to the Vaishnava theology, very, 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 very super duper, very few souls abuse that freedom and end up here. And so here we are, there's a great concentration of souls like ourselves. And we are under the impression that there is a lot of souls who have misused or abused their freedom. But the tradition has an answer where they say, no, this is just like a super, super small number of souls, like so small it's insignificant in comparison to souls who have not and who will not most likely abuse their freedom. And so that is the answer. And now that tradition gives. But again, I have the question that I stated before. And I don't know, I never got an answer to it. And I'm okay with not having an answer. It'd be nice to have it. It'd be definitely. Now, if Krishna is the source of everything, does this desire also, or does this duality exist in Krishna? What we're told is that it doesn't, or actually it does exist, but only in the good form. Just like everything else in this world of duality, everything, like nothing is evil in this world. In America, there's a huge discussion now for some years going on whether arms, firearms, weapons, are evil or not, and should the citizens have them or not. But not politically looking at the situation, but just philosophically from the Krishna conscious point of view, we don't say that arms or firearms or even automatic firearms are evil. You can use them for great things and you can use them for horrible things. Just like a kitchen knife. So everything is actually good in its original state, but in the world of duality could be used one or the other way, and that duality does not exist in God. Like that's the answer we get. So it does exist, but not in this dual capacity like it does here. Yes?
Because Krishna is no duality. It's like if I steal something from myself, it's not a sin. But if Munindra steals something from myself, then he commits.
That's a good one.
Then he commits a sin. But so, and the ignorance given is kind of the field where we can choose our freedom.
To go deeper into this other world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we've been told.
I'm not sure. Can you rephrase your question again? What your question? What you had?
Oh, I'm not sure if I should mention it too many times. May become a problem in somebody's mind. I'll tell it to you afterwards. You're close to Lord Nrsimha, that will protect you from the question. Just. Oh yes, Prabhuji.
I didn't follow the last verses, but to look at it from a negative way, like the old Daksha, could it be that Daksha had this change of mind because he just experienced that Lord Shiva is so powerful that he could create a person who comes and cuts his head off? And definitely among things that Daksha realized was how great Lord Shiva was.
Lord Brahma personally had to come, and all of the demigods have fallen under the influence of Lord Shiva. So they all offended Lord Shiva, and demigods offended Lord Shiva.
Yeah, but under the influence of Daksha.
Correct, yeah. And even some sages offended Shiva. You know, these are very powerful individuals. And the outcome was that they were all smothered. And there it is, Lord Shiva dealing justice at the end. And then Daksha was, wow, you're great. So, but here it's not very specifically stated what kind of greatness Daksha became aware of. But he's in love with Lord Shiva. Like, he really has feelings of love for Lord Shiva at this point. Yeah. Yes.
I think it's a very important topic because it's how to say, es betrifft uns alle. It's for all of us. My question is, you could give an inspiration how to deal with such things, because all the time
how to deal with
such situations, similar situations. I think we all the time ourselves also experience it. I mean, we know from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Trinada Pisu Niche. Maybe you could.
Yeah, you can't be a Trinada Pisu Niche now and cultivate ignorance. Just, I mean,
to tolerate from other persons different things almost all the time.
Yeah. What to do? Well, there. If you look at the system of Krishna consciousness, you see two very clear categories. You know, one category is preemptive, and the other one is, what do you call it? Things you do after the act, post. What would be an English word? Post-act. I just made up that word. Preemptive. How do you say? You know what preemptive is? So you should have stopped me. God knows what lecture they heard. Just kidding. Preemptive. Preemptive refers to something you do in order to prevent something from happening. That's preemptive. Preventive. Oh, sounds same like English preventive, to prevent. Yeah. Yeah, that's the word, that's the meaning. So something you do before something happens in order to avoid that, prevent that from happening. That's preventive act or preventive act. And then you have things you do after the act, right? So there are things you do before the act to prevent the act from happening. And if the thing already happened, then you do something afterwards. And A and B are of educational nature. So we constantly read, like in this story, you know, you go into details. We really meditate on how it all unfolded. You know, how the hell broke loose. Do you know that term? How the hell broke loose, you know, and how it eventually got patched. And so, you know, we study those symptoms, we become aware of them, then we learn the causes of it. You know, there's the superficial causes up on the surface, and then we seek for the deeper causes, deeper. And then eventually, you know, you come to the deepest one, which is you said no to Krishna. And from that no to Krishna, everything else came. so that's preemptive things we do. And then after it happened, then we reflect, we talk about it, we think about it. And in this way we familiarize ourselves with the system. They say that that 50% of the solution is just in knowledge. And the other 50 is execution. But just when you have come to know, you have done 50% of work. So by knowing, we try to prevent, and after it had happened, we try to learn something from it. And by the way, this is stated over and over again in the Bhagavatam, how after it happened, we actually learn from it. And how ultimately everything that happens, its only purpose is for us to learn from it. There are such statements. And that Bahirmukha, or the person who's unaware of the internal world, is incapable of this kind of learning, because thinks that the value of these incidences is only in the incidences themselves. Doesn't understand that behind the incident there's an intention of God Himself, ultimately. This is also a very sensitive topic, but I think, anyhow. I did write down some notes on that too, but maybe tomorrow. Okay, should we end here? It's after 9 o'clock. If the esteemed audience has nothing against it. Oh, there is one more. Yes, yes.
You said this word evolution,
Oh, volition.
Oh, volition.
Volition.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Volition. And how can we strengthen this volition when we want to become more stable in the renounced order of life, also regarding these essential things which binds us to the material world and to sense enjoyment? Could you give some good advice for this, please?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Krishna consciousness has the system of learning in Krishna consciousness, or the system of change, the system of spiritual change, has two actions. One is called pravritti and the other one is called nivritti. Now Srila Prabhupada used these two terms in different places, in different capacities. But pravritti means, it refers to things you do, and nivritti would be things you don't do. Or you could also think of it in terms of attraction and repulsion, or like for example in Krishna consciousness we learn by being attracted, by having a very positive experience of attraction towards Krishna, or Krishna, or realizations in Krishna consciousness, realization of Krishna in the form of deity, in the Bhagavatam, the holy name, manifestation of truth, when we learn something new. All of this creates positive experiences which attract. And then there are experiences which repulse us. Like we learn, what's that verse in the Bhagavatam? Dharmasya hi apavargasya. Dharma, religion, is meant certainly for apavarga. And apavarga means cessation of material existence. And in the purport, Prabhupada describes the nature of material existence, where you work hard, you're being tortured by working hard, you're like an ass, you work so hard, you suffer, and then in the end you die. And some people, they read this and like, oh, life is not that bad. To a devotee, yes. But if you're not a devotee, you know, you don't have these repulsions, you know, because they didn't go down the path of Krishna consciousness. They think, oh, it's not that bad, it's kind of nice. But the devotee thinks, no, material life is horrible, and the devotee is completely in bliss. While saying this, materialists can't understand this. They're thinking, why are you so negative? They don't get it. So, don't touch. By these two processes, there comes the change in our system of volition. And when we start to desire different things in a different way, and then ultimately we become truly devotees. That's like in principle. Okay. All right. Thank you. Grantaraj. Oops. Oh, sorry. You did. Last principle. No, these two principles of. You missed the whole thing.
No, I missed only the last word that you said, the last sentence.
Oh, what was the last sentence?
These are two basic principles.
These are two basic principles. Yeah. Okay, Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki